What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar thus far, what's going on with other factors involving Tesla that are affecting it in terms of news and stuff, what you should be watching for as time progresses as I give you guys my price predictions for tomorrow and this week. But before we get into all this information, before I get into any more details about the charts and what's happening with all this data, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, for Tesla, as you guys can see, Tesla is attempting to form a bullish wedge right over here. It may even make an attempt to go a little bit higher, but we're going to be watching some key resistance and also how the overall market may affect it. So I'm going to be looking to see if Tesla can get this little pop, test this resistance, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get from here going into the future. But I do have a little bit more of a prediction to make about this. I'm going to make more predictions about the market in just a couple of minutes. I first want to talk about some data. I want to talk about some news articles about Tesla, and then break down what these charts could be suggesting for tomorrow. Now, let me first say that right now, the market's in a very, very interesting place. We did see a little bit of downside that ended up closing us for Friday. And then going into Monday, the data that's coming out may not affect us that insanely compared to like Jerome Powell's speech, but there is some data coming out. At 8:25 a.m. before the market opens, we have Bostic from the Fed giving a speech. And then at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's when we have more serious data. Let me first note that at 10 a.m., actually, we have new home sales. That's very minor data. I'm not going to worry too much about this. But once again, 10:30 a.m., an hour after the market opens in Eastern Standard Time, 10:30 a.m., we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index coming out, and we have Cook from the Fed giving a speech. Then also at 11:30 a.m., we have the 6-month and 3-month bill auctions coming out. So I think that these are the most important times to be watching for volatility in the markets. At 10:30 a.m., the market may react to that, and also at 11:30. So we'll see what happens during those times, but watch for volatility at them. Now, on top of this, for Tuesday, we have more important data coming out from house prices, not to mention more manufacturing numbers. So watch for volatility on Tuesday as well. Wednesday has very, very minor data. And then Thursday is actually going to be the last trading day of the week. We have jobs numbers coming out. We have the Michigan Consumer Sentiments data. But that's going to be the last day of the week because the market is going to be closed on Friday for Good Friday. We do have PCE data still coming out, not to mention Jerome Powell giving a speech, but the market will not be trading at this time for the New York Stock Exchange and some other exchanges. So make sure you guys are prepared for that. We have a short trading week. Thursday is going to be the last day of trading, and we'll see how things go. But just to go forward, Monday is how we're going to kick things off with some minor data. For earnings that are coming out, this is what we have so far. Everything is very, very minor, like I said before. I'm not really going to play any of these. I don't really have any plans to do so. But if you are a retail investor, you're going to be looking at like GameStop as one you might be watching, not to mention a few others out there throughout the week. But everything else very, very minor in my opinion. I'm not really seeing too much. For other factors involving the markets, we also have the options chain right over here. Something very interesting is going on. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Monday, March 25th. Okay. We have very few options expiring. We only have about under 100,000 calls and we have under 300,000 puts. It's not that crazy. Max Pain is 520 with the 3.07 puts to call ratio. I'm not really expecting anything too crazy because of this. It's not that insane. Same thing with Tuesday and Wednesday. Very, very minor amounts of options expire. But on Thursday, it's going to be the last trading day of the week. Okay. We have something pretty insane going on. We have under 400,000 calls expiring, but we have close to 2 million puts expiring. We have a 5.32 puts to call ratio, 513 is max pain for now. This will be adjusted. But I just want to say there are lots of puts expiring for the end of the week, which makes me think that the market makers may play a lot of games. Could we see an end of the week short squeeze? Could we start off very weekly this week, start off with some downside and end up very, very strong because of all these puts? It's a real possibility and it's something very important to consider. For other pieces of data, the market's just at greed. We were at extreme greed. Now we're just at greed because of some changes. Market momentum is still greedy. Everything else is still in favor of greed. The put and call positioning is going up a bit, which does tend to happen when the market's about to see some downside because of repositioning. So this means that there is going to be a risk of some downside because of this if this does keep going higher. And also the VIX is pretty low right now. It's at some critical support. Could we get a little bounce in the VIX? We'll just have to wait and see. As of right now, we're still below the 50 daily moving average, so the trend is still overall upwards. We'll see if this changes as well, but as of right now, the VIX is still kind of weak. Now, for Tesla, we have some big news that has come out. Reports are saying that the lower priced Tesla Model 2 production is going to begin in 2025. And that is technically what the plan has been for Tesla, but more articles are talking about this. More reports are coming out about this. And there's been a lot of talk about how Elon Musk has replied to a lot of letters out there that this is what Tesla's main goal is. We'll see if Tesla ends up achieving this. We'll also see what happens with interest rates, which are going to continue to affect Tesla for some time. But moving forward, if Tesla does make this announcement, reports are suggesting that the Tesla factory in Germany will be the first one to produce the Model 2. It'll be like nice and small and inexpensive. That's what the plan is so far. This could also be incorporated with the Robotaxi, which is great news. But like I said before, this is kind of like there's a lot of like speculation that's involved in this. I can't say this with 100% certainty. But if this were to be the case, it's great news for them. This is what Tesla's planning on doing. And if this ends up coming out, if the Model 2 is announced anytime this year, it's going to be a very bullish catalyst, at least for the short term. Tesla will make a big move to the upside. Because this has not been officially announced by Tesla, they're not like, guaranteeing the Model 2 will come out on a specific date yet. Uh, they have plans to do so, but they haven't really made any big announcements yet. So that means that I can't really see this as a catalyst to really cause Tesla to bounce for the short term. If something big were to come out, then maybe, but I am seeing some good reports about this. So it is still a good piece of news for the long term for the company. So we'll have to see how things change. Moving forward, I just want to call out that there's been a lot of talk about the Tesla Diner. Tesla's continuing to make progress on its upcoming diner, drive-in theater, and supercharger in Los Angeles. You guys can see there's a lot of drone footage right over here. This is what it looks like. I think this is going to be very, very cool for a lot of Tesla enthusiasts, and we'll see if other people are also allowed to go here for their other cars, which are compatible with the supercharger network. This looks pretty cool. Lots of progress is being made, and that's a great piece of news for Tesla. So they're continuing to work on the irrigation system around there, also working on other things like that. So it's pretty awesome. With nice water runoff infrastructure and things like that, that's going to be a lot more useful. On top of this, Tesla's launching 6 additional Cybertruck wrap colors. We can actually see a lot of them right over here. They have different forest screens, rose gold, and etc. Pretty cool looking colors, in my opinion. That's good news for the Cybertruck. Here's what they are going to look like. You can actually see the color in the bottom. They have like a nice purple. We have a very, very nice tactical green, for example, and the list goes on with all the different colors so far. So good news for Tesla. Very, very awesome stuff for the Cybertruck. This was just announced, and I think that's very exciting, at least for the long term. As far as Tesla goes, I haven't seen too many like major headlines this weekend. We'll see if anything comes out for tomorrow. Volume is currently at about 75 million, a little bit below average. So Tesla's kind of getting tighter. Short volume is kind of the same right here, not really changing much. Goldman Sachs gave Tesla a neutral rating, not seeing much changing there either. Price risk ratio is kind of low though, as Tesla has been underperforming the market for quite some time. So we'll have to see if this continues. If that ends up continuing, this could even drop lower. The Mondays do tend to be green about 53% of the time for Tesla. Tuesdays are green about 51% of the time. So let's hope we get a decent day tomorrow, but that's not a guarantee. And I also want to note that I'm not seeing any other massive pieces of news yet, massive changes. We'll see what happens tomorrow. So, with that being said, guys, I went over the majority of the data sets I wanted to go over. Now, I want to talk about some more big factors involving Tesla. So, Tesla's been very difficult to predict because of the fact that it's very dependent on the news. So, in the morning, news headlines could come out in a excuse me, in a flash, and they could cause Tesla to just drop like crazy out of nowhere, or even run like crazy. Right? We had all this news involving Elizabeth Warren and the SEC probe, and all this other news about the Chinese production numbers being cut. It's absolutely insane. But here's what I do see on the chart. I want to talk about what the chart suggests is very likely, and what I think will end up playing out. So SPY and the QQQ are showing a little bit of weakness. There is a risk of them kind of dipping a little bit more, but even if they do dip more, they could still be on an uptrend, and that could affect Tesla. Now, with that happening, I want to note that technically speaking, Tesla looks a little bit more bullish right here, forming a bullish wedge. So we're going to be watching resistance at 172. If we break this, watch 173.75, then 175. If we break that, we could go all the way up to almost 178. For support, watch 170. If we lose this, there's 167.8 to be watching for, then 165. What do I think Tesla's going to do? With the bullish wedge forming, there's a very good chance that Tesla's going to push higher to try to fill its gap up to at least 172. I think we're going to get a really nice pop tomorrow, a very, very decent one in the morning. Tesla may be pushing up a little higher into the very, very low 170s, 173 for example, is one target we could be going up to, even 175. But then Tesla may pop in the daytime and then start dipping as the day goes on because of how the market may start performing. So there is going to be a risk of it coming back down towards this level where we currently are. So I think we may get a pop and drop like move tomorrow as the most likely possibility based off technical analysis. But there's a big but. Now, as we are very range bound, I do have a big but, and that is the fact that the news could be another factor. If we get a really explosive good piece of news and we start breaking past 175, we could easily go up to this high right here at 178. If we get a very bad piece of news, if we kind of pop and start dipping very hard, you're going to be watching our critical support at 167.8 and 165. If we lose this, we're going to be sinking much lower. But I'm telling you that I can't solely just predict the news. I think it's very likely Tesla will try to push higher looking at technicals. And there's a very good chance it's going to try to retest this resistance in this very, very mid 170 area before it comes back down, starts to consolidate for a bit. I find that to be the most likely possibility. For SPY, we have resistance at 522. We have support at 520 and also at 518. Now, let me note that not Tesla, SPY has this bull flag like structure. It's on a bit of a downtrend for the much shorter term, but for like the bigger trend on SPY, when you zoom out like this, you can see it's still on an uptrend, right? And I can actually draw out this trend line right here. See the big white trend line right here? This is our support. SPY could go all the way down to the 517s and still bounce and turn bullish. That's something very interesting. Because SPY pumps so much, it has a lot of leeway for downside. It could drop down to 517, 518 and still bounce and be bullish overall. I want to make that as clear as possible. So what do I see on the charts? There's a bit of a downtrend right here. I think there's a very good chance the SPY is going to fill its gap towards 520, and we'll have to see if we get a bounce or not. It might be a little reaction there before we continue a little bit lower, and we're going to be watching to see if we end up losing 520. If we do lose that, I could see a move all the way back down to like the 518 area, and I think that once we do get there, if we do end up dropping all the way down there, a nice bounce could come from there and a push right back up. So I find that's to be the most likely possibility from what I'm looking for in terms of patterns and also in terms of this flag. I think that SPY might come down here, kind of rebound a bit, then continue to slowly downtrend. We could get a very, very weak open, maybe even dip a little bit tomorrow, but then we're going to be looking for a bigger bounce later on for the week, especially because of all the puts expiring on Thursday for SPY, which is going to be the last trading day of the week. So look for a little downtrend, a little dip, and then a nice bounce as time goes on. That is very, very likely. For the QQQ, okay? On the QQQ, we have resistance at 446, 446.7, and also 448. We have our support right here at 444 and 442. Now, on the QQQ, we got this little potential break in structure, but this could be like a little trap just to trigger some stops. And we start to dip again in the after hours. This is going to depend a lot on the market, but I do think there's a possibility that the QQQ kind of comes down a bit before it tries to rebound. If this is a lower high being established, look for a little pop when we open and watch and see if we try to break past 446.8. If we break past it, then we could go higher. I'm open to the possibility of this being an inverse head and shoulders. If we break past 446.8 tomorrow, if we kind of pop it and fail, this could be a trap for retail, and we can actually dip a little bit more to 444 before we get that bounce. So there are two possibilities. I do think that it might actually dip a little bit before we get the bounce. So it might kind of like pop a bit and then come back down here to 444, and then we could get a later bounce for the week. I find that's to be very, very probable. What else is going to affect this is Nvidia. So one thing that's going on with Nvidia is we have a nice double bottom and also like a Wyckoff accumulation structure. But the issue with Nvidia is the fact that we got this really, really big push, and now we have this like gap and these imbalances up here. And according to Wyckoff, sometimes you're going to get like a little dip during this like SOS phase. So this is your sign of strength. So what's going to likely happen is this might dip a little bit and then eventually push higher. The chart is bullish. It could still uptrend quite a bit, but it might do something a little bit different beforehand. So I'm also going to be watching this support right here on Nvidia. We can actually draw this out. We could get a retest of the support and then try to break out. That's the most likely possibility. Watch resistance at 944 and then 950. If we break 950, we're going to be pushing much higher towards closer to 960. If we lose support at 932, we're going to be looking for a dip all the way down towards the 921 area, like right here. If we lose this, we could be coming back down to 908. I think that Nvidia might kind of pop a bit and then start coming back down, retest this liquidity right here where this trend line is. It may cause the QQQ to dip a bit as well. And then it might try to hold this trend line and try to bounce later on for the week. That's a real possibility. Overall, Nvidia is bullish, but there could be a little dip coming before it continues higher. So I want to warn you guys about that possibility. And then additionally, we have Aapl right over here. Now, From a technical standpoint, the chart is looking a bit more bullish. It looks like it could try to rebound a bit as we have this imbalance to fill at 176. But there's a big but. The problem is it depends on the news, because we got this dip because of a lot of bad news that came out. The news came out and it basically talked about how Apple, of all things, had the DOJ coming after them, suing them. So that's why we got this dip. So it's very news dependent, just like that of Tesla. But I do want to note, technically speaking, with this wick forming here, this is kind of like a liquidity sweep. I think that it's going to dip a little bit, but we have to watch and see if we try to bounce above like 170.9, around that area, 171. If we get a bounce above that, it could try to rebound nicely and then start pushing higher. If we come back down to like 170, so it's going to dip a bit somewhere between 171 to about 170, somewhere around here. It's going to dip most likely. Watch and see if we get a bounce. Where do we bounce at? Do we bounce here around 171.25? Do we bounce at 170 flat? We'll have to wait and see. And if we get that bounce and we start pushing higher again, we could see a little bit of a bounce later on for the week for Apple. So it looks like it might dip tomorrow, dip a little bit on Apple into this liquidity zone, then eventually start pushing up higher for the end of the week to fill this imbalance. I find that to be the most likely possibility, especially as we have this like big gap on Apple. So I think we're going to dip a bit and then eventually make our way up higher as time goes on. All right, so that is it for the main five I typically go over. As far as Tesla goes, it's going to likely be affected by the overall market. Tesla could actually try to push and outperform the market in the morning tomorrow. So make sure you watch for that, but then see how the market affects us moving forward. Let me go over a couple more before I conclude the video. Looking at Palantir. Palantir is very indecisive as of right now, but the overall trend is not looking as great. When I zoom out a little bit, let me actually bring back some other indicators I want to use. Let me just say that we are in a bit of a downtrend right here, at least on our 4-hour time frame. And then simultaneously, when we zoom out of the chart like this, there's some weakness that's being displayed right here. So watch resistance at 24.33. Watch our support right here around 24 flat. If we lose that, 23.75 could be coming. Because of this imbalance in this gap, I think there's a very good chance to test 25.75 to 23. I'm sorry, 23.75 to 23.45. Then we try to bounce after that. So I find that to be very, very probable. For super micro, we're looking a little bit weaker. We got this little rejection off our 50 EMA, and I'm seeing this potentially breaking the structure here. So I could see a little dip towards about 9.25, then a potential bounce after that. So I think 950, then 925 are likely going to be tested, and it may try to bounce after that. But look for a little dip on super micro. For Rivian, I see this actually coming all the way down to about, let me double check this, 10.6 to about 10.5, around that area, because we also happen to have a head and shoulders that's playing out very nicely so far. So this chart looks a little bearish. I could see this actually sinking towards 10, the lower 10s. So I do see a little downside coming to Rivian. Watch for that before it tries to bounce. So be careful. For SoFi, it's the same thing. I'm looking for a bearish cross in the PPO. Watch support at 7.28. If we lose that, we're going to be sinking all the way down towards 7, which is where we have this imbalance. If we bounce off this, we have to try to break above 7.43 to turn back to bullish. My guts tells me it's going to pop a bit and start sinking back down lower to about 7. So be a little bit careful, and it could bounce after that later on. For AMD, we have support at our 177 area. Watch the support. If we hold this, we could rebound to 182, then 186. If we lose 172, a bigger drop is going to come. In my opinion, is trying to kind of like base here. So watch to see if it kind of tests this and tries to bounce. I do think that's a really, really strong possibility, but we have to watch to see if it can hold 177. If the market's dipping and this thing like fails to hold support, there's going to be a risk of it losing 177 as well. So we have to see if it holds it or not. It's trying to base there. If it loses 177, 172 is coming next. We'll have to see if it tries to hold that support for now. And if it does hold it, it's going to rebound. If it loses this, it's going to sink. So I'll just have to wait and see. I'm kind of in the middle with it since it's very indecisive. ARM is kind of contracting a bit. It could actually retest 131.79, then try to bounce. It is in a little downtrend right here. So I see a little dip coming before it tries to rebound. For just a few more, Coinbase starting to show some weakness. Look for a test of 251. If we lose this, we're going to be sinking to 241. If we hold this, we could try to rebound. So I do see a risk of this actually dropping lower towards 250, and we'll see if this holds or not. For Amazon, in my opinion, is testing resistance between 178 to 180. If we reject off this 180 area, we could start sinking back down to 177.5 to 176.33. And if we actually hold this, we're going to be in a decent place. My gut is telling me, and I just want to make it clear, we do have a tendency of getting rejected between 178 to 180 many, many times. And we want to be very, very careful. The thing is, there is a risk of this kind of getting rejection right here. So we want to be very, very careful with that. For Meta, I just want to make it clear that we're at resistance as well on Meta. This has kind of like a nice accumulation as well, nice double bottom. So I could see this actually pop a little higher and eventually come back down to 503. I think that whether the move is done or not is to be determined. It may pop a bit, then come down to 503. So watch for that. I think it may dip overall, but we may pop first and then come back down afterwards for Meta. For Microsoft, we're on an uptrend. This is looking bullish overall, but watch resistance at 430. If we break 430, we're going to be pushing to 432, then 435. If we reject off 430, we're going to be coming down to 424. Resistance near 430 is very tough for it, and this is actually starting to turn a little bit. So I see a risk of this coming down to 424, and then we'll see if it bounces off that. For the VIX is starting to look a little bullish. It could actually push for 13.42, if not 13.8. It may get a small bounce because of the market potentially coming down a bit. So I do see a risk of that for SPY. So we'll just have to see how things go. For the dollar, this is it's actually bullish overall. It's still trying to break some key resistance levels. I just want to note that we're approaching resistance right here around this 104.6 area, and we also have 105 above that. So we'll see if we keep pushing. If that ends up being the case, we'll see how things go. But if it pushes higher, I'd be very, very careful nonetheless. So that being said, thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next video. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and just know that Tesla, once again, could pop a little bit more, could try to push and outperform the market temporarily, but then we'll see if the market affects this at least later on. Let me just bring back the hourly one more time. So once again, last time I'm going to mention Tesla. Be careful, guys, with this current area that it's in. We want to be watching to see how it reacts, especially to the way the market's moving. I see potential for Tesla to push a little higher and get very close to 172, but watch and see if we get a rejection or not on Tesla if we try to pop to these higher levels. So look for a push on Tesla tomorrow morning and then see if we end up dropping with the market later on. It also depends on the news, so we'll just see how it goes. But with that being said, I thank you all for listening. Have a great day. Once again, enjoy Sunday and peace out.